Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital Today channel. There are two ways Curtis obtained $1 million to murder Drew: theft or theft. Curtis Ashford is a risk-taking gambler. What other explanation is there for his incredible conduct of ordering the murder of Drew Cain? When fans discovered that Curtis used mobster Selina Wu to hire a hit on Drew, they were shocked. Looking back, it shouldn't have come as a surprise because Curtis has always been a little dubious. However, if he utilized filthy money in his most recent adventure, there are two mistakes that could come back to haunt him. Let's examine the potential consequences of Curtis' impatience. 1. Fans witnessed Curtis and Selina meeting to talk about a hit on Drew in flashbacks. Drew has $1 million to make this happen, and Selina has the army to do it. However, followers questioned in online forums how Curtis, of all people, could have $1 million pesos. He works at Aurora and owns a pub. A liquid $1 million or more cooling its jets in his PC bank account, but on paper, he's definitely worth much more. He could have made that much money in one of two ways, either by embezzling from Aurora or by engaging in several illicit activities at the Savoy. Is Curtis flushed? Since Curtis hasn't been at Aurora long enough, how can he be making a lot of money as CEO? Additionally, if he stole from Michael Quartermain, he would run the risk of earning his anger. In fact, if Curtis did embezzle, there are two possible outcomes. Michael would give him a thump on the back and ask, "Why didn't I think of that?" And 2, he might have him taken into custody. Curtis and Michael have had highs and lows over the years, and embezzlement is prohibited. Michael is erratic due to his current mental state. Michael, are you truly falling for Jacinda Bracken? It's obvious that Michael has some warped neurons right now, and he wouldn't think twice about throwing his CEO under the bus if he were found responsible for Curtis' theft. 2. What has Curtis been doing in the Savoy's back room? Even when Selina is out of town, criminal activity still occurs. At his club, Curtis might be involved in a variety of underground operations. Tell us, GH lovers, how did Curtis get the money to hire a hitman, and will this backfire on him? Curtis Ashford's path toward $1 million murder plot is the kind of sensational twist that feels outrageous even by General Hospital standards, yet somehow fits perfectly into the slippery moral landscape he's been sliding through for years. And when fans started piecing together how Curtis could possibly have scraped together enough cash to commission Drew Cain's demise through the cunning and ruthlessly efficient Selina Wu, the picture that emerged was anything but flattering, because whether he dipped his hands into the Aurora coffers or ran a shadowy empire behind the respectable walls of the Savoy, the truth points to just one conclusion: Curtis didn't accidentally fall into $1 million, he took it, and whichever theft route he chose is destined to explode in spectacular fashion and drag half of Port Charles down with him. The flashbacks made everything look clean and cinematic: Curtis meeting Selina in that dimly lit back room, the two exchanging sharp words, measured glances, and silent implications more dangerous than any gun she could ever slide across a table. Selina didn't ask twice when Curtis named Drew as the target, she didn't even blink. Her network is vast, her resources infinite, and her willingness to handle dirty jobs for the right price is legendary. But Selina is also meticulous. She doesn't move unless the money is guaranteed, so this wasn't a handshake deal sealed on a promise. She wanted $1 million upfront and verifiable, and Curtis, whose income streams are stable but nowhere near that stratosphere, said yes without hesitation. And that's where everything gets murky, because unless Curtis has been secretly sitting on some hidden inheritance that viewers never heard about, the likelier explanation is that he crossed lines he swore he'd never cross again. As the online chatter pointed out, Curtis may be a bar owner, but even a bustling club like the Savoy doesn't just casually produce a spare $1 million in liquid cash. And although he's positioned well at Aurora now, stepping into executive territory does not magically mean he has access to piles of unmonitored corporate funds. So how, exactly, did he conjure up 7 digits so fast? Fans are divided into two fiercely opinionated camps. The first camp believes Curtis dipped into Aurora's finances, siphoning off money quietly and cleverly in ways that would avoid immediate detection, but not necessarily avoid ultimate discovery. This theory casts Curtis as a man making desperate decisions under pressure, gambling not just with money but with his career, his freedom, and any shred of respect he had left from the Quartermain-controlled business he's supposed to steward with integrity. Embezzlement at that level doesn't stay hidden forever, especially with Michael Quartermain looming in the background like a ticking time bomb with a moral compass that spins depending on which way his emotions tilt on any given day. Michael, already unstable in his own disastrous personal life and showing increasingly erratic judgment, honestly, falling for Jacinda Bracken is proof enough that the man is not operating on full logic, would react to Curtis' betrayal in one of two extreme and unpredictable ways. Either he would privately congratulate Curtis for doing something outrageously bold and morally questionable, the kind of thing Michael himself has done dozens of times under the guise of protecting his family, or he would throw Curtis directly into the legal fire, washing his hands of loyalty and watching as law enforcement tears Curtis apart piece by piece. There is no middle ground with Michael anymore, and that makes the embezzlement theory genuinely terrifying. The second camp of fans believes an entirely different scenario, one that paints Curtis as a man whose club, the Savoy, has been a ticking criminal time bomb for years. Even though Selina Wu has stepped out of town temporarily, her influence still hangs over the club like a shadow no one can escape, and with her absence, Curtis may have seized the opportunity to expand the underground operations she previously ran behind his back. We're talking high-stakes gambling, black market deals, unregulated cash flow, private rooms where anything can happen if the price is right. And if Curtis, desperate and fueled by a need for control, took over those operations personally, maybe telling himself it was temporary, maybe justifying it as survival, then the $1 million starts making sense. Illegal enterprises can generate massive profit fast, especially when the boss isn't sharing with anyone and knows which customers will pay top dollar for privacy, danger, or the thrill of getting away with something forbidden. If Curtis has indeed been orchestrating secret criminal activity behind the polished bar and jazz music of the Savoy, then he may not just be guilty of theft, he may have built an entire unregulated empire right under Port Charles's nose. And that poses its own avalanche of consequences. What happens when the police start sniffing around? What happens when the wrong deal goes wrong? What happens when one of Selina's associates returns and realizes Curtis has been pocketing her revenue stream? Even worse, what happens when someone connects his sudden influx of cash to the attempted murder of a man as high profile as Drew Kane? Every path leads to disaster, and Curtis' arrogance, believing he could hide this forever, makes the potential fallout explosive. And let's not ignore the irony. Curtis has spent years lecturing others about moral high ground, about trust, about second chances and honesty, yet here he is, committing a crime so large it makes the past mistakes of the people he criticized look tame. If he stole from Aurora, he jeopardized the entire company. If he ran a criminal hub out of the Savoy, he jeopardized the community he pretended to protect. Either way, Curtis picked theft as the foundation for murder money, and that choice is going to haunt him far longer than any guilt over Drew himself ever will. Fans are now speculating wildly about which storyline GH will reveal. Will it be the corporate embezzlement route, with Michael Quartermain discovering the missing funds at the worst possible moment? Imagine Michael confronting Curtis, cold and betrayed, tossing down spreadsheets and bank statements, his calm fury so intense it could practically crack the walls of the Q mansion. Or maybe it'll be a Spencer-like audit, someone at Aurora finding a discrepancy, a whisper, a number that doesn't add up, and suddenly the dominoes start falling. Or will GH pull back the curtain on the Savoy's dark side, exposing Curtis as the mastermind behind a citywide network of underground deals? Picture Jordan or Anna stepping into the club with a search warrant, shutting down the poker tables, interrogating Curtis under bright lights while he sweats through lies and excuses. Picture Selina returning, icily amused, laughing at Curtis' attempt to imitate her empire, before delivering the kind of threat she reserves only for men who insult her by thinking they're smarter than her. The possibilities are deliciously chaotic. And fans aren't just asking how Curtis got the money, they're asking when the truth will detonate. Because secrets in Port Charles never stay buried, and $1 million hit is not small potatoes someone can casually sweep under the rug. Curtis is playing with fire, no, he's bathing in it, and when it ignites, he won't be the only one burned. Drew's survival, or death, the Quartermain's reaction, Selina's retaliation, the police investigations, every storyline that spins out from this has claws, teeth, and consequences. One wrong word, one suspicious bank trace, one anonymous tip could unravel everything. The question isn't whether Curtis' choice between theft A or theft B will come back to bite him. The question is how soon, how violently, and how many characters will be pulled into the spinning wreckage once the truth emerges. GH fans are buzzing louder than Selina's neon poker tables, and the consensus is clear: Curtis Ashford may have gotten his million, but he bought himself a disaster he can't afford, and Port Charles is waiting for the blowback with popcorn in hand. If Curtis Ashford's million-dollar mystery wasn't already a tangled knot of secrets, danger, and moral corrosion, the deeper implications of what he's done only become more staggering the longer fans examine the scenario. There is a reason this storyline has exploded across forums, fan pages, and YouTube recaps. Curtis didn't just cross a line, he pulverized it, swept up the dust, and used it as the foundation for a crime so brazen that even longtime villains would raise an eyebrow. And what's truly fascinating is how seamlessly this storyline fits into the evolving character arc the writers have been crafting for Curtis over the years, because as much as he has presented himself as the guy who tries to do right, the loyal husband, the club owner trying to stay clean, the former PI with a good heart, there has always been a slight shadow side lurking beneath his polished exterior, a subtle hunger for control, for power, for influence. Curtis has always claimed he walks the line between right and wrong because life forced him to, but now fans are wondering if he always liked the thrill of walking that tightrope a little too much. Take, for instance, Curtis' history with temptation. From the minute he arrived in Port Charles, he's been navigating worlds where moral compromise comes standard: the investigative world, the mob-adjacent business dealings, his entanglements with Jordan, Taggart, Sonny, and Portia, his years operating in the gray zone around Cyrus Renault. Curtis knows how fast temptation can slip inside a situation dressed as necessity. So when he committed to taking Drew Kane out, even viewers who gasped in surprise recognized a familiar look in his eye, the look of a man who has decided the ends justify the means, even if those means require him to steal, to lie, and to wade into criminal waters deeper than he ever dared before. And that's what makes the $1 million such a pivotal part of this story. Because it isn't just about the hit, it's about how far Curtis was willing to go before the hit even happened. The money is the real confession here. A clean man doesn't magically pull 7 figures out of thin air. A desperate man steals it. A calculating man steals it smartly. A guilty man tries to cover his tracks. And right now, Curtis might be all three. If he stole from Aurora, it isn't just corporate theft, it's personal betrayal. Curtis wasn't hired at Aurora because he was the most experienced or the most business-savvy executive available. He was hired because Michael Quartermain likes pretending he's a benevolent king offering opportunities to people he trusts. And Michael, as unstable and hypocritical as he's been lately, still believes he can sniff out dishonesty before it hits him. The idea that Curtis would dare steal from him, especially at a time when Michael himself is drowning in questionable decisions, toxic relationships, and self-sabotaging impulses, is practically poetic in its inevitable destruction. Fans have predicted that if this embezzlement theory turns out to be true, Michael's reaction will be one for the soap history books. Some fans picture Michael unleashing a cold, calculated rage, a Quartermain business shark persona rarely seen in full force but absolutely lethal when activated. Others picture him spiraling, screaming, slamming drawers, ripping up financial documents, demanding to know how he let this happen. And then there are the few who think Michael might surprise everyone. Instead of throwing Curtis to the wolves, he might confess he's done far worse and actually protect him, bonding with Curtis over a shared understanding of crossing legal lines for emotional reasons. That's the thing with Michael now: he's unpredictable, emotionally scattered, and morally unstable. He can be genius one day and disaster the next. If Curtis stole that money from Aurora, fans know the fallout will be massive. But they don't know what direction it will explode in. But the alternate theory, the Savoy crime syndicate theory, as some fans are calling it, is just as juicy and possibly even darker. It asks the question, what if Curtis didn't just commit theft? What if he's secretly been building a criminal network that rivals Selina's? After all, it wouldn't be the first time someone transformed a legitimate business into a blueprint for underground operations. And Curtis has always been a master at compartmentalizing. He could easily run private tables, high-stakes gambling dens, VIP rooms where the buying and selling of secrets becomes as valuable as cash. The Savoy has always had an atmosphere ripe for shady dealings, low lights, jazz music drowning conversations, regular clientele who prefer privacy, and a reputation for being neutral territory. That neutrality becomes a perfect mask for criminal activity. And remember, Curtis knows exactly how Selina runs her operations. He knows who her clients are, how she manages debt, and what kinds of deals she negotiates. He knows the infrastructure. He knows the profit margins. He knows the vulnerabilities. And if Selina left town without fully locking down her system or her customer base, Curtis might have seen opportunity knocking and answered before thinking through the consequences. This theory paints Curtis not as a panicked man grabbing whatever he can find, but as a strategist. A man who didn't stumble into $1 million, but engineered it. Maybe he started small, letting the illegal gambling continue just until the revenue stabilized after the shooting. But one night turns into 1 week into 1 month, and before long, he has created a parallel version of Selina's empire with himself as the quiet puppeteer behind the curtain. And once the money started flowing, maybe Curtis realized something chilling: illegal revenue is far more lucrative than legitimate business. One high-stakes night at a poker table could pull in more profit than a month's worth of drink sales. One under-the-table deal with the right client could pay off debts, secure leverage, and build capital quickly. Curtis is a businessman. He understands supply, demand, and profitability. He also understands leverage. And nothing gives leverage like controlling the secrets of people willing to pay for silence. If this theory is true, Curtis didn't just take stolen money, he built a criminal institution. He didn't just borrow a little, he took over an economy of crime. Now consider the implications if he used that money to hire Selina to kill Drew. Selina is many things: methodical, calculated, elegant, terrifying, but she is not a fool. She would absolutely recognize her own infrastructure if Curtis tried mimicking it. She might even appreciate the ambition, up to a point. But when ambition crosses into encroachment? Selina responds with elegance and violence. If she learns Curtis used her absence to profit off of her hard-built network, she won't simply cut ties, she'll cut arteries. The fallout from that storyline would be spectacular: Selina versus Curtis, a full mob war energy without actually being a mob war, because Selina doesn't use armies, she uses precision. Curtis knows this. And yet, if he still crossed her, fans believe it might signal that Curtis has reached a psychological breaking point where fear no longer registers and morality has been replaced by a desperate desire for control. Then, of course, there is the emotional elephant in the room: why kill Drew at all? Money is the logistics, but motive is the soul of the story. Drew Kane, for all his faults, isn't the type of person Curtis would casually mark for death without being driven by something huge: betrayal, jealousy, revenge, desperation, manipulation, or a secret only the two share. Fans are buzzing about motives ranging from Drew uncovering Curtis' financial crimes, to Drew threatening to expose something from Curtis' past, to Drew being collateral damage in a broader power play that spiraled out of control. Some fans even suggest Curtis may have been influenced, manipulated, or coerced by someone more dangerous, someone who promised protection, leverage, or something Curtis wants badly enough to trade Drew's life for. And now, with Drew potentially surviving, depending on future spoilers, the stakes triple. Because the only thing more dangerous than hiring a hit on someone is hiring a hit on someone who doesn't die. A living victim is a talking victim. A talking victim is a threat. And a threat is a ticking bomb counting down to exposure and destruction. If Drew wakes up and reveals anything, Curtis' empire, legal or illegal, collapses overnight. His marriage implodes. His friendships dissolve. His career vaporizes. His relationship with the police becomes a one-way ticket to prison. The Savoy shuts down. Aurora files charges. Selina retaliates. Sonny gets involved whether he wants to or not. The entire web collapses under the weight of Curtis' actions, and the crash will be loud. That's what makes this plotline so exciting. It isn't just about Curtis committing a crime. It's about how the ripple effects touch every major character orbiting him. And fans live for ripple effects. GH thrives when one secret becomes 5 storylines. Curtis' million-dollar decision could fuel a year's worth of arcs, legal battles, mob negotiations, business implosions, broken marriages, moral reckonings, emotional confrontations, and even medical drama if stress aggravates Curtis' physical condition. And let's not forget Portia. If she finds out Curtis hired a hit? Season over. Marriage obliterated. And Portia isn't the type to quietly cry in a corner. She will scorch earth, expose him publicly, and maybe even assist the police to ensure he faces justice. Their already fragile marriage, tested by secrets and trauma, could end in spectacular flames. Taggart? He'd lose his mind. A former cop watching his friend slide into criminality? The betrayal would cut deep. Jordan? Complicated history, deeper loyalty, but the badge comes first. If she learns Curtis committed murder for hire, she is obligated to act. But emotionally? It will destroy her. Stella? Oh, Curtis better run. Her disappointment alone could level a city block. And then there is the question fans are asking in every corner of the internet, will Curtis get away with it? That answer depends entirely on which theft route he took. Embezzlement leaves a paper trail. Criminal empires leave witnesses. Selina leaves no loose ends. And Drew leaves the biggest threat of all, truth. No matter how you analyze it, Curtis has boxed himself into a narrative corner he cannot escape without massive consequences, and GH fans are waiting breathlessly for the moment the truth detonates.